I got into video games with the Super Nintendo and for a while owned just 3 titles. Super Mario World, SimCity, and Tom and Jerry. These 2 are good. This one, not so much. I think we all had a game like this. One you wouldn't have given a second look if you had anything else to play. But after beating Super Mario World for the 4th time in a week, what else was I supposed to do? Go outside? What's really funny is that this is the only experience I've had with the Tom and Jerry brand. Not that it matters all that much. I've seen enough Itchy and Scratchy to get the gist of it. Tom is the cat, Jerry is the mouse, and they fight. Got it. As with most tie-in games released before 1996, Tom and Jerry is a standard 2D side-scrolling platformer. It's so standard, in fact, I barely need to mention the mechanics. You can take one look at the game in action and easily figure out exactly what everything does. Collect 100 bits of cheese to get an extra life, the larger wedges refill your health, and these little green orbs are your weapons. I used to think they were balls of snot, but now, as an adult, I realize they're actually marbles. What's interesting is that Jerry has 2 means of attack. There's one button for a high throw and another for a low throw. The point is to alternate between the 2 based on what type of enemy you're fighting. Low throws for cockroaches and high throws for mosquitoes. And as simple as that sounds, I still somehow manage to screw it up. I usually just stick with the low throw for most enemies, and combine it with a jump if something is too high to hit. Though, if you're really stubborn, you don't need to flick snot at all, since most enemies can be defeated by simply jumping on them. That said, I wouldn't recommend trying this against the cockroaches. Sure, it works, but they're resilient buggers. A stark contrast from stomping Goombas in Super Mario Bros. Or cockroaches in real life. Tom and Jerry is competently made. It controls well and looks good with bright, colorful characters and detailed backgrounds. The only real problem with the visuals is the game's complete disregard for scale. Jerry is a regular brown mouse, so it makes sense that he'd be battling primarily insects. But then, in the second level, he winds up inside a video camera. It's a neat idea, but just how big is this thing? And yes, I know it's a video game, but these issues persist all the way through to the last level. Popcorn, too big. Inflatable raft, way too small. And look here, either these Lego blocks are supersized, or they're Duplo. This is important because it determines whether the toy tank is standard Hot Wheels size, or a Micro Machine. Tom and Jerry is split into 4 worlds with 3 stages each, for a grand total of 12. People often give modern games a hard time for their lack of content, but can you imagine paying full price for this? Thankfully, Tom and Jerry isn't very good, so its short length isn't a major issue, and depending on your opinion, might be seen as a positive. As for the stages themselves, they're reasonably varied, with each world adopting a different theme. And to be fair, from a visual standpoint, they're all unique. Except for when you're in the toy store. Those 3 are pretty samey. Each world, as you might expect, ends with a boss fight against Tom the cat. I suppose he's the villain of the piece, though that's really a matter of perspective. If your house were overrun with Jerrys, you'd appreciate a Tom coming in to eat them up, or to crush them with heavy machinery. Though Tom and Jerry is, for the most part, adequately mediocre, 2 aspects stick out as being particularly unpleasant. First is the music. By my count, there are 3 tracks. 2 are somewhat catchy, while the third, seemingly the game's main theme, is utterly monotonous. And disregarding their compositional quality, even the best tracks are pretty low energy. This means they fit well with the laid-back platforming, but not so much with the boss battles. It's hard to get any thrill from these encounters with the same dull music droning on and on and on. My second complaint, and this is the big one, can be summed up in just one word. Springs. Let's be straight here. Thanks to the game's generous health bar and copious cheese wedge pickups, Tom and Jerry is a bit of a cakewalk. Or rather, it would be if not for World 3 Stage 2. The reason? Springs. I'll be honest, I've never been particularly comfortable with the trampolines in Super Mario Bros. Either. Even if you're better than me, I'm sure you know how unruly they can be. And that's a good game. Tom and Jerry is worse. So much worse. Even when taking into account the horrors of the springs and the dull music, I still can't call Tom and Jerry a bad game. But should you play it? No, of course not. Unless you're a major Tom and Jerry fanatic, I can't think of one reason why this game is worth even a second of your time. I mean, watching a video of it on YouTube is one thing, but actually playing it? Nah.